It has been over a year since Hosni Mubarak stepped down as president of Egypt. How much has really changed, and what does the youth of Egypt have hopes for? From the cheers that were heard across Cairo a year ago, we take you to the bustling streets of New York City this year, where prospective producer Sahar Sarshar and I visit Mona Eltahawy, Egyptian-American journalist.
Yes?
Hi Mona, it's Arash from Voice of America.
I'll be right down to get you.
Okay, thank you.
Many know Mona for her famous tweet back in November of 2011, being arrested in Interior Ministry, where she was attacked and assaulted close to Tahrir Square on Mohammed Mahmoud Street. She sustained injuries to her arms, one fractured and another broken.
The week that I was attacked, 3,000 people were hurt in Egypt and 40 were killed. But my human rights activist friends tell me that they knew exactly who I was and they targeted me for a reason. And so I think to myself, you know, they broke a writer's arms. In Syria, they crushed a cartoonist's hands. So, you know, our dictators, they tailor their oppression and their violence to the occupation of the people that they attack. As horrendous as these injuries are, a lot of people are turning the poetry against them. And, you know, I'm saying, you might have broken my arms, but I'm still using this finger to type.
Mona has used Twitter as a virtual loudspeaker, and her injuries have not stopped her from using touchscreens to get her message across.
I sit there and I think everything I say is going to be read by 106,000 people. So that you then begin to think of the responsibility of what you're doing, you know?
Makes you self-aware.
With that responsibility, Mona continues to press the country's military leadership on their handling of the transition to a civilian government.
I mean, they're basically a military junta, and I say that we replaced one Hosni Mubarak with 19 Hosni Mubaraks. We can't fix those 30 years in the space of 1 year. So we have to understand to move away from that papa figure, from the patriarch. What we have to do in Egypt is start rebuilding civil society, rebuilding institutions that Mubarak destroyed, and rebuilding leadership. Now, right now we're seeing experiments in democracy that might not make us all happy. For example, the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafi parties have won the majority in parliament. For me, someone who's a secular liberal Egyptian, that's not my ideal scenario, but it's part of the process of moving away from a dictatorship to a country that is run by the people for the people.
The Muslim Brotherhood was given free rein aside from meaningful political participation in Mubarak's Egypt.
When Mubarak was in power, he systematically opposed and shut down any kind of opposition, but the only thing that he couldn't shut down was the mosque. And so a lot of people started developing opposition to him through the mosque. And that's where the Muslim Brotherhood comes from. They didn't just express through religion their opposition, but they also went out and provided services that the regime was not providing. So they went to poor neighborhoods and they set up clinics.
Mona credits the Muslim Brotherhood's highly organized structure and charitable social services for the recent electoral success.
I think Muslims, just like any human being, want choice. We have to understand that the Muslim Brotherhood are Egyptians, you know, and they have supporters in Egypt, so they've earned a lot of their votes and they deserve those votes. But, you know, these elections were a mess. I don't believe that they were free and fair, totally. I think that there was a lot of forgery in them, but they were better than elections under Mubarak, so they were our mess. So right now it's the Muslim Brotherhood under very messy conditions that have won the majority of votes in this election. As long as they provide the kind of services that they promised their constituents, then, you know, they should stay in power. If, however, the Muslim Brotherhood have promised a whole bunch of things and are not able to deliver on these things and are not able to act as politicians, then 4 or 5 years from now, for the next election, vote them out. That's all that I'm concerned about. I'm not worried about the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm worried about our right to vote them out if they do not deliver.
Mona also discusses social media's role in the revolution, as well as its limitations.
You have to remember that there are high rates of illiteracy in Egypt. Not everybody has access to the internet, and the majority of people in Egypt are not on Twitter or Facebook. And so you're talking about a small core group of activists who did use Twitter and Facebook to organize, but the majority of people did not. It's also important to remember that Mubarak shut down the internet for 5 days or 4 or 5 days. That didn't stop the revolution. That actually encouraged the revolution, because a lot of people who were at home watching the revolution online had nothing to do, and so they ended up going out on the street. A lot of parents who were worried about their kids and couldn't follow them on Twitter or Facebook or on mobile phones because they shut down the mobile phone network, went out on the street to join their kids. So if anything, what Mubarak did backfired. So I think as long as, you know, if you shut down the internet and the revolution continues and grows, that says to me the internet was not responsible for the revolution. The internet was just one of many factors.
Mona insists that despite what happens next, after last year's events, there's absolutely no turning back.
You know, it's very interesting for me that people outside of Egypt are so pessimistic. But when I return to Egypt and I talk to people who, you know, who've been beaten up, who've been tortured, who've been in jail, they remain really optimistic. And the reason that we're all optimistic is because there's been this amazing awakening in Egypt. We are saying no in the loudest form that we have in a very long time. It will not stop until the demands are met, and there are many more demands that we have to fight for.
Mona continues to travel back and forth to Egypt in hopes of ensuring her and other activists' demands. For VOA, this is Arash Azizzada Sahar Sarshar reporting from New York City.